We're just 5 days away from the start of the 2024 college football season and less than 2 weeks away from SEC football. So I'm going to give you my preseason power rankings in the SEC. This is SG1 Sports here on the SEC channel at the voice of college football. Let's jump right in. We're going to start at the top, and we're going to start with number one. That is Georgia. To me, Georgia clearly looks to be the top team in the SEC again this season. Carson Beck returning at quarterback, all the other weapons they have on offense, a great offensive line, and you know how good that Kirby Smart defense is going to be. And what Georgia has more than maybe any other team in this conference is depth, and they have talent, and they have depth that has talent, and it's just they come at you in waves. You're going to see new faces this year that didn't play a whole lot last year, but they're going to turn into stars this year, and that's how it always is with Georgia. They are number one. Let's go to number two now. The Texas Longhorns. Texas figures to be right there in the mix to get to the SEC championship this season. Quinn Ewers, of course, returning. Love some of the transfers they brought in at wide receiver. The offensive line is going to be good. Losing C.J. Baxter is a big blow. There's no way around it. They're going to miss him, but they've got some guys I think that'll be ready to step up and at least give them some pretty good production from that running back spot. Defense. Secondary, maybe some question marks there, but overall, I think Texas is going to have a pretty solid defense, and it's really going to be about the offense. That's why I've got them where I've got them. Speaking of offense, Ole Miss, they're going to have really good offense as well. Coming in at number 3, Jackson Dart returns, bringing in more weapons in the transfer portal. This is going to be a very explosive offense once again under Lane Kiffin. Looking at the defense, I like some of the additions they've added in the transfer portal. They've beefed things up on the defensive line. This is a defense that actually has a chance to be pretty good, and that's something we haven't really been able to say about Ole Miss. So, yeah, I think this year's defense will be pretty solid for the Rebels. And then you go to number 4, that's Alabama. Crimson Tide coming in at number 4. Of course, Nick Saban is gone. How much of an impact will that have? If Saban was there this year, I'd probably have Alabama at number 2. Because, well, and also if you didn't have some of those transfers leave that left because he retired. But yeah, the defense, will they be as good as they have been in the past? I'm going to say probably not, but I still think they've got plenty of talent, especially this year, and I think they'll be just fine. They're going to have a good offensive line, good run game. Really comes down to Jalen Milroe in this passing attack. Can he improve there? Can the receivers around him step up? They don't really have a lot of proven go-to type guys at that wide receiver position. So that's going to be another question mark here for the Crimson Tide. And the way I did these rankings, it's the same way that I did my top 25, my preseason top 25 over on my channel if you want to go check that out. But basically, if teams were tied, if there were teams that were really close together, what I did was I used the standings from last year or the rankings from last year, and that was kind of my tiebreaker. Didn't have that in these first 4 teams, but in these next teams, this next group of teams you're going to see, I think they're all pretty much the same, and that's what I've got here, 5 through 9. Missouri, Oklahoma, LSU, Tennessee, and Texas A&M. I think, I'd be fine if you wanted to move these around in any other order. I wouldn't really argue because, again, I think these teams were very even, but what I did was I went with the final rankings from last year just to have something to, a fair tiebreaker, basically. So Missouri, because of how they finished last year, they actually come in at number 5. Going to be an explosive offense, of course, just like last year. They're going to be very good on that side of the ball. The defense, I think, takes a step back from where they were last season. Lost some key players, lost Blake Baker, and I think that's going to show. And I think you will see a defense that's not quite as good, but it may not matter because this offense is going to be so good. They may just be able to outscore teams. So Missouri, going to be dangerous again. I look at those first 4 teams. Those are your front runners that I just showed you. Those are your front runners to get to the SEC championship. These 5 teams, these are the dark horses, in my opinion. These are the teams that could get there if things go right. So watch out for all these teams. Oklahoma is going to be loaded on defense. That's going to be the strength here for the Sooners. I think this is going to be potentially maybe even the best defense in the SEC. I'm not going to say that for sure, but I think it has potential. Really no weaknesses on that defense. All 3 levels, they're really, really good. And then you look at the offense with Jackson Arnold taking over. We'll see what he can do. Young player, not a lot of experience. Has some weapons around him. Offensive line, maybe a concern. We'll see about that. But the Sooners at number 6. LSU number 7. Garrett Nussmeier has experience. He has played, of course, not been the full-time starter for a full season, but I think he's going to do a great job there for them at quarterback, and they've got plenty of weapons at receiver. It just seems like they lose great players, and then that next wave just steps up, and I think that's what we're going to see. The running back position, I know Kyron Jackson, there's a lot of hype around him. I want to see what he can do behind a very good offensive line, potentially the best offensive line in the SEC. And then a defense that, they're going to be great at linebacker. Harold Perkins and Greg Penn, great linebackers. But you look at the defensive line in the secondary, question marks there, very unproven. Can they turn things around with a new coaching staff? That'll be the question mark for LSU. Tennessee, they're going to have great offense like they always do. I don't think that's going to be a concern at all. So many weapons. A quarterback who looked great in the bowl game last year. Offensive line that should be good. They're going to be able to score points. And then defense, you love the defensive line. But behind that, are they going to be good enough to beat some of the elite teams? Are they going to be good enough on defense to get this team to an SEC championship? I think it's possible. We'll see. And then Texas A&M at number 9. Mike Elko takes over. Great coach. I think he's going to do big things here at Texas A&M. There is still a lot of talent. I've been saying this all off season. People kind of sleeping on Texas A&M, in my opinion. There is still a ton of talent on this roster. I know you lose a great running back to an injury, but this was one of the deepest running back groups in the country. I mean, they're going to be okay there. They've got solid receivers, offensive line that should be good. Connor Wigman returning from injury. This is going to be a good Texas A&M team and a defense that I think will be pretty solid as well. So if a team is going to surprise and get to Atlanta, I think it's going to come from these 5 teams. So our next cluster of teams, Kentucky, Auburn, and Florida. To me, these teams all pretty even. So we're going back to last year. Kentucky had the best finish of these 3. Wildcats going to be very good on defense. I don't know about the offense. There's a lot of unknowns there with Brock Vandagriff taking over. How good is he going to be? They've got great receivers. They lost a running back to injury as well. So I'm a little concerned about the offense and just how good they're going to be, but I think the defense will be very, very good for Kentucky. For Auburn, I like some of the additions, speaking of defense, that they've added. Defensive line's really been beefed up. They've had some injuries on defense as well, so we'll see about that defense. I think it'll be solid, maybe not great. And then it really comes down to the offense and the offensive line and the passing game. They have no question marks at running back. That's going to be a strength of this team. Offensive line, perhaps, are they going to be good enough? Peyton Thorne, is he going to make better decisions? I think the receiver group is going to be much, much better. I love the additions. Cam Coleman is going to be a star, I think, right away. And so you feel like this offense should take some strides forward. And then you got Florida at number 12. It's still a pretty talented roster. I think they're pretty similar to Kentucky and Auburn. Graham Mertz, very underrated at quarterback. Depth at receiver, we'll see. They got a lot of speed there, so that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Running back group should be pretty solid for them. And then the defense, I love the secondary. I think they're going to have a really good secondary. Front 7, it should be decent. So these teams probably don't have a chance to get to the SEC championship, but could possibly surprise and have a 9-3 type season, although that's going to be very tough for Florida with their schedule. Next is Arkansas. Bobby Petrino taking over as offensive coordinator. Can he get the offense fixed? That's going to be the big question mark there. Landon Jackson on defense. I think I said this in one of my prediction videos. He could be a Harold Perkins type guy and maybe change a game, win a game for this Arkansas team. He is that good, that kind of player. But again, it comes down to the offense and being balanced and are they going to be able to throw the football? We will see. I have to kind of trust Bobby Petrino to get that thing turned around and at least make some improvements. Number 14 is South Carolina. Lenore Sellers at quarterback. We'll see what he can do. I don't know. It's hard to say. A lot of unproven guys on this South Carolina team. Rocket Sanders, can he get back to his old form? If he can, that's going to be big for them. The line of scrimmage, though, for South Carolina is not great. Offensive line, defensive line, not great. I like their secondary on defense, but a lot of question marks, a lot of inexperienced guys here for South Carolina as they come in at number 14. And then finally, Mississippi State and Vanderbilt. Mississippi State, I think the offense with Jeff Lebby is going to be pretty good. I think they'll immediately make some improvements there, but the defense, boy, it could be rough. I mean, they lost a lot of guys, lost a defensive-minded head coach. I think this defense is going to be pretty bad, just to be honest here. And then Vanderbilt, I think they're going to be bad on both sides of the ball. They are Vanderbilt. and there's really no reason to expect them to do much this year. So those are my power rankings as we get started, or start heading towards the actual games. It's here. College football is here. This is week 0 this week. And so we're going to find out a lot about these teams, and I'm going to try to do a video every week updating my power rankings. Would love to hear from you and how you would rank the teams. Go ahead and rank all 16 teams for me down in the comments below.